I had my pistol raised when they finally stopped smiling. Two men stood on the far side of my ranch gate, acting like they owned the dirt beneath my boots. Both wore black vests stamped with HOA cop in bold white letters. Like a costume was enough to make them kings. One jabbed a finger past my shoulder toward my house. The other rolled a knife in his palm, lazy and smug, like we were chatting about fence posts instead of threats. Behind them, my cattle lifted their heads. The crooked no trespassing sign hung exactly where it had for 30 years. Funny how reading never stopped people who thought power came cheap. The taller one leaned forward. Hand over the deed, a KOA needs it verified. I didn't lower the gun, I didn't shout either. You crossed the locked gate. I said you're armed. You've been warned. Turn around. They laughed, that soft, confident laugh, the kind that says they've bullied people before and walked away clean. Can you believe how relaxed they were? But then that laugh told me this wasn't about paperwork at all. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching and make sure to subscribe Silent Divide Tales because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Now here's the backstory. My name is Ethan Cole, and I've lived on this land longer than any HOA within 50 miles. My father ran cattle here. His father broke this soil with a mule and this Weiner steer. The deed sits framed on my wall, older than the county road outside my fence. I'm not some rule breaker hiding paperwork. I'm a rancher with a legal firearm, a clean record, and a family asleep behind me. That family is why this matters. 2 years ago, a shiny new development crawled out of the hills down the road. With it came letters. Then fines for land they didn't own. Then a demand to verify my deed because my property blocked their future plans. I said no politely in writing with state law attached. That's when it got ugly, late-night drive-bys. Men pacing my fence-friendly little warnings taped to my gate. And last week a note slipped into my mailbox with no stamp. Turn over the deed or we'll make this hard on your family. So when the knife man stepped closer and muttered, "Accidents happen out here," something inside me went cold. And that's where everything crossed the line it could never uncross. The knife man took one slow step closer to the gate, boots crunching gravel like he'd paid taxes on it. "You don't want trouble, old man," he said, voice slick. "Out here fires start easy." Kids wonder, did he really just say that out loud? But then that threat hung in the air like smoke. I raised the pistol to eye level. Not shaking, not yelling. Just steady ranch work teaches you how to stand. When things turn bad, drop the knife. I said, "Back away. Leave." The taller one sneered and tilted his head toward my house, toward the porch, toward the curtain that barely moved where my wife stood listening. He's scared, he mocked. Look at him, was I scared? Sure, but fear doesn't mean weak. And that's when it got worse. The knife tapped against the man's palm, metal clicking soft and steady. He stepped again, slow, not rushing, just enough to show intent. "Accidents happen," he repeated, smiling wider. "Barns burn. Livestock spookwives scream real loud out here." What kind of idiot threatens a man on his own land? But then I realized they thought that vest made them untouchable. I shifted my stance, heel planted, weight centered, muzzle steady, sight locked on the knife hand. "Last warning," I said. "Drop it." They laughed again. That same smug laugh, the pointing man started to talk. Probably another joke, maybe another threat, but he never finished. I fired. The crack ripped across the pasture. Cattle bolted. The first round hit low and hard. The knife flew. The man staggered like the ground betrayed him. I fired again. He dropped. The second man froze, eyes wide. Smile gone, he reached for his waistband. Why would he do that? But then panic makes stupid choices. I adjusted and squeezed once more. The shot caught him high in the shoulder and spun him into the gate. He screamed, collapsed and clawed at the dirt, leaving a dark smear behind him. Silence followed except for my wife's sobs. I didn't advance. I kept the pistol trained. "Don't move," I said. Knife man wasn't listening anymore. The other one was begging now. No authority left, just fear leaking out in broken words. I backed toward the house without lowering the gun. "Call 911. I told my wife trespassers. Self-defense sirens were already faint in the distance. And as I set the pistol down and raised my hands, I knew this wasn't an HOA problem anymore. This was about to become a crime scene. I set the pistol on the porch rail and stepped away from it slow. Hands raised where the cameras could see. My heart was hammering now. Not panic, just the aftermath catching up all at once behind me. Mara. My wife was crying into the phone, trying to say the words "there's been a shooting" without breaking apart. Out by the gate, one man lay still. The other was bleeding and whimpering, staring at me like he'd finally figured something out. When did he realize the vest meant nothing? But then reality doesn't ask permission. The deputies arrived hard and fast. 3 cruisers tore down the dirt road, lights flashing through the trees, gravel spraying everywhere. I stayed right where I was.
Hands up empty.
Clear. I'd already said what mattered into the 911 call. My name is Ethan Cole, I'm the homeowner. I fired in self-defense, the weapon is on the porch rail. They took control quick. One deputy went straight to Mara, who had sunk onto the porch steps, shaking so bad she couldn't stand. Another moved toward the gate, gun-drawn eyes locked on the 2 men in black vests, now streaked with dust and blood. Ambulance 2 minutes out, someone said over the radio. The knife man never moved. The other one was barely hanging on, clutching his shoulder, mumbling apologies that meant nothing now. Paramedics rushed in. One glance at the body by the gate and a slow headshake followed. The survivor got strapped down and hauled off under guard. Then came the questions. I told them everything slow, exact. The letters, the fines, the fake authority, the threats, the note in my mailbox, the knife. The words about my wife and kids, they didn't interrupt, they photographed the knife. The footprints past the locked gate, the crooked sign that had warned them fair and clear. 6 security cameras caught it all. 3 angles, clean audio. When the sheriff arrived, he pulled me aside. You did the right thing, he said quietly, but we'll do this by the book. By morning, the truth cracked wide open. The men weren't HOA officers at all, just hired muscle with fake vests and borrowed nerve. One had a warrant, the other had been kicked out of private security for violence. And suddenly the HOA went very quiet. Funny how silence shows guilt, isn't it? But then this story wasn't done yet. By the end of the week, everything unraveled. Emails surfaced, not rumors. Not guesses, real messages. HOA board members talking about pressure, about making examples, about forcing my hand. Suddenly, the same people who sent fines and threats were resigning all at once. Their legal counsel quit midweek. Development accounts were frozen. Civil suits stacked up, criminal charges moved even faster. Funny how bold people get quiet when receipts show up, right? But then the law finally stepped into the room. The district attorney reviewed everything, the footage, the audio, the threats, the knife, the locked gate, the warnings. His ruling was clean and final. Justified self-defense, no charges, no grandstanding. Just the law doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The fake HOA cops one was buried. The other lived long enough to face charges tied to extortion, impersonation, and conspiracy. That vest never protected him again. Life didn't turn into some movie ending overnight. I still wake up early, still check the gate. Still walk the fence line at dusk. But the drive-by stopped, the letters stopped. The silence this time wasn't threatening. It was peaceful. Mara sleeps through the night again. When our kids asked why there were new locks on the gate, I didn't lie, I told them the truth. Simple and steady, because this land is ours and nobody gets to take it by force. That lesson stuck. Because out here, power doesn't come from a vest, a title, or some racist little fantasy of control. It comes from knowing your rights, standing your ground, and protecting your family when there's nowhere left to retreat. So yeah, 2 fake HOA cops learned the hard way that intimidation breaks fast when it meets truth land. And a man who won't back down. If this story hit you, share it. Let people know how fast fake authority collapses. When justice shows up, and subscribe to Silent Divide Tales. Because the next story proves once again that bullies always misjudge the quiet ones.